Welcome back to Consider This. Melisa and Sharaad here with you this evening. The Perdana International Anti-Corruption Champion Fund was launched tonight to provide support to officials of anti-corruption agencies who have been targeted or exposed to threats in the line of duty. To help us better understand the challenges that anti-corruption officials face when in their jobs, we have joining us via Skype Datuk Seri Akhbar Sattar, criminologist and former president of Transparency International-Malaysia. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Now, I'd like to begin by perhaps getting your help in helping us understand how exactly funds in general, and this fund specifically, will help our anti-corruption officials.
I think, first thing, this is a good move, right? And number two, of course, you have to know that, corruption, normally, talking about corruption, normally those who are involved in corruption have power, and of course they are influential, they have money, and they are dangerous. Therefore, some of the complainants and whistleblowers have been killed, some have been splashed with acid and so on, and of course a few of them lost their job. According to one study, 69% of the whistleblower lost their job. I think the fund is very important for them.
One of the things we've noticed is that perhaps in Malaysia we haven't had the kind of violence you see in other countries, but even in advanced countries we know that journalists who have been pursuing cases of corruption have been murdered and so on and so forth. Does this fund, is this basically in a global fund, and how much will it have to have in order to serve all the very different contexts, some very violent, some less violent?
Yeah, of course. I think they started with small fund, but later, of course, we are hoping, or the MACC is hoping, or the government is hoping that other countries will contribute. Then I think we can expand. But as far as I'm concerned, I think we have to divide into two categories: one for local and the other one for international. Right? So I think this is very important because since the money is funded from our government, therefore I think we also have many cases. You can see that 2 days ago where the custom officer in Rantau Panjang, his car has been burned down, by the what they call people who are involved in integrity and also corruption in the border. So I think it's very important for this fund, especially to be allocated to those who are forever, right, giving evidence, giving information, and also pass good information to the law enforcement agency, especially the MACC.
So I'm just wondering, for the people who are helping us fight graft, what kind of efforts are needed in terms of helping them? And when you say these funds will be used to kind of combat the threats, the loss of jobs, perhaps the threats to lives and dignity, what would that mean? Would that mean compensation? Would that mean more security? What would the funds be used for?
I'm not sure yet, but of course, as I said earlier, right, some of them, those are involved in corruption, splash acid on the informer, and also some have been killed. In fact, in Ukraine, few months ago, right, one of them has been killed, and the other one was splashed in acid. And also, you can see that cases in Malaysia where we have also a former DPP has been killed. Right? So it is believed that there is some connection with corruption cases. So therefore, I think maybe, especially for those who lost their job, at least you can use this money. I think the money will not be given that much, but the most important is that to show that there is some incentive, and also to encourage people to fight corruption, and as we know that corruption is the mother of all evil.
This initiative seems wonderful. The question really is, as Malaysia is kind of pushing forward on the anti-corruption agenda, are we taking lessons from or best practices from around the world? Where do you see these plans coming out from? Are we modeling ourselves on others, and if so, who?
Actually, this is very important. This is a very good question because I think prior to this, we copy ICAC from Hong Kong. But to me, I think the most important point here is that we have to find the root cause of the corruption and the integrity problem in the country because we have a different ethnic group. Therefore, I think by finding the root cause, by doing empirical study, therefore, I think then only we can come up with our own model. I think that will be more suitable, to fight corruption because corruption is not easy to fight. And we need a special and also the right tool, the right model in order to fight by our own model because we have different ethnic groups.
Well, you've had considerable experience in this line. I mean, you are a criminologist, also former Transparency International-Malaysia president. In your experience in fighting corruption, what is the root cause of corruption here in Malaysia specifically?
We don't know because we don't have any empirical study. It may be because of our upbringing, number one. Number two, maybe because of the school system, or maybe because of social or economic problem. We don't know. So this is very important for scholars and also professors. Instead of concentrating more on politicking, politics paper and politics research on politics, because you can be famous very fast. It is better for them to conduct a study, empirical study on the causes of the problem of integrity. Actually, in Malaysia, we are facing integrity crisis. So therefore, in order to fight corruption, we have to solve the integrity problem in the country.
I'm sure you're watching the many trials that we have on at the moment involving some very prominent members of the former government, their spouses and such. Are you learning something every day from watching these trials about how exactly these corrupt practices were so flagrant in their exhibition in the previous government? Do you think feudal attitudes, too much deference to authority, were these elements, do you think, in the Malaysian corruption ecosystem?
Yeah, I think, frankly speaking, previous government, corruption was very rampant. In fact, the worst part, they provide funds for the law enforcement agencies, like NBCC, right? They obtained roughly 250 million of their budget. And also, that time we have Pemandu, they spend billion, and also NKRA. But still, corruption was rampant, and in fact, the former Prime Minister was arrested, and also the spouse. So this is very important because the most important in order to prevent corruption, I think, number one, we must have a sincere political will. Sincere, strong political will. Meaning to say that, some politicians, it's not necessarily in Malaysia, right? Corruption for them is good because they can make money, they can be in power. Number two, which is very important also, is the effectiveness of the anti-corruption agency. We must have an independent anti-corruption agency. And also, the AG is the most important also because AG is the one who is going to decide whether there is a case or not. If you have an AG who is more appointed by the present government, therefore it is quite difficult for him to make decision, especially when there is corrupt practice or corrupt allegation against the Prime Minister, or Deputy Prime Minister, or Deputy Minister, and so on. So this is very important. That's why. In fact, the NGO are fighting for this to make sure that appointment of the AG must be meaning to say that you have to look into the matter. We don't want that the AG appointed by the king, but of course suggested by the Prime Minister. The final part is the cooperation from the public. Public support, I think, is very lacking in the country. Compared to Indonesia, we find these three factors, right? Effectiveness of the anti-corruption agency, the sincere political will, and also support from the government, support from the public. I think they have that. But the most important point now, we are talking about corporate sector. because corporate sector is one of the largest contribution to the corruption. But I think with the introduction of the Section 17 of the MACC Act 209, I think the company has to be careful because right now Asia is facing problems. Therefore, it is a lesson for us, especially the corporate sector, to make sure that you have to comply with the instruction or the law that in Section 17, especially on your adequate measures.
All very insightful points. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Datuk Seri, appreciate you spending time with us today, explaining a little bit more about the efforts to support our anti-corruption officials. Now we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more on Consider This, so don't go anywhere.